my name is Srushti Kulkarni. Today we are going to see what is meant by programming language. Later we are going to see what is meant by Java, why Java is basically used to develop a backend, why Java provides the security, why we have to learn a Java, what is meant by object-oriented programming language. All these parts we are going to cover in our today's session. So let's start now. So first let's start with what is meant by programming language and why the programming language we are using. So first, what is meant by programming language? In simple term, we can say that programming language is nothing but the set of instruction. First, what is meant by set of instruction? So you are just going to set the instruction and compiler is going to execute that instruction. That is nothing but your programming language. But the question is why we have to learn the programming language, like why we have to go with the Java. So simple term, if I told you to do the addition of 2046 plus 4057, it will be difficult to do the addition. So because of that, we can just easily go with the programming language. We will just set the instruction, compiler will follow that instruction and execute our programs. So let's start with the Java and the programming language. So first, programming language which is introduced, which is nothing but low level programming language. So what is meant by low level? Those are the languages that are closer to machine language, that is known as a binary, and provides minimal abstraction from a computer hardware. So first language, which is basically the low level language. Inside that low level, there are two types of languages. The first language, that is nothing but your machine language, and the second language which is introduced, that is a assembly language. Now again, what is meant by machine level language and why we not use a machine level language? So simple term, machine level language is also known as a first generation. Why it is the first generation or why we are not using a machine level language? So simple term, we are a human being. We only understand English, Hindi, Marathi. Okay, like those languages we can easily understand. We are not able to understand 0 and 1 continuously. Like if I told you to print a welcome message only using 0 and 1, it will be difficult to do. So if we are not able to display the welcome message, then how we can build applications like WhatsApp, Instagram, Flipkart, right? Because of that, machine level language is not that much useful. But always remember, the machine level language basically in a binary, it is known as a native language of computer. It is directly executes by the CPU and difficult to read and write for the developers. So on the basis of this machine level language, the another language introduced, which is nothing but your assembly language. What is meant by assembly language? So it is known as a second generation. Okay. But why the assembly language is not also in a use, like some of the developers even don't know about the assembly language, like beginners also don't know about the assembly language. So simple term, assembly language codes done in a command. Okay. Now again, it is a command. So developer can easily do the commands, easily build the applications, easily build the programs. But there is one drawback. What is the drawback? That assembly language code needs to be translated to the machine language before the computer proceeded. Now you can see that commands code is going to the machine code and then it is going to be execute. So again there will be bugs, again there will be the errors. So because of that, machine level language and the assembly language, both language are not in a use and not even that much popular as compared to the high level programming language. So that's why those two languages are called as a low level language. And on the basis of that, the another language introduced, which is called as a high level programming language. So what is a high level programming language? So simple term, you can say that high level language, the syntax is in English. Okay, we are a human being, we can easily understand English, we can easily read, we can easily write, we can easily manipulate. So that is the high level language. That's why the high level language is very much popular. So you can see, like if we start with the C programming, like C, C++, Java, Python, PHP, every language is written in English. So you can easily read, you can easily write, you can easily manipulate. That's why this language is very much popular. So those are the languages that are more abstract and closer to the human language. They are easy to read, write and maintain. Example C, C++, Java, Python, JavaScript, Ruby, Kotlin, those are the basically languages which are the high level programming language. So now the high level language is very much popular. So it is also divided into two parts. The first part which is known as a procedure oriented programming language and the second part which is known as a object oriented programming language. What is meant by procedure oriented? You have to follow the procedure, you have to follow the structure. That is nothing but your procedure oriented. But procedure oriented language is basically for the small scale program. It is not used to build applications. Why? Because the procedure oriented language will focus on how the program is executed. It will not focus on like you are getting output or not. So that's why the procedure oriented language is not used for the large programs. So on the basis of that, the another language was introduced, which is nothing but your object oriented programming language. Object oriented, why we are using object oriented? So simple term, Java is also the object oriented programming language. Why Java is object oriented? Because it provides of features like encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, like this, all the features are provided by the Java or provided by the object oriented programming language. Using those features or using object oriented, we can easily build applications like Amazon, like Myntra, like Instagram, like WhatsApp. We can easily build that application. So that is object oriented. So simply the procedure oriented means what? Procedure oriented programming language, the approach that emphasizes functions or procedure. The procedure oriented, the main focus is on what step need to be taken to solve a problem. The program is typically structured and sequential or top-down manner. So always remember, the procedure oriented programming language follow the approach. Which approach? Top to down approach. But object oriented programming language follows bottom to up approach. So that is a object oriented. Object oriented is basically just we can say like it is wrapped in a class and object. Like everything can be done using a class and object. What is meant by class? So simple term, class is a collection of data. What is meant by object? Object is nothing but the instance of the class. So this is a class and object. And as I told previously, that object oriented programming language provide a features like encapsulation, like abstraction, like polymorphism, and like inheritance. What is meant by abstraction? Abstraction is nothing but hiding the implementation and showing the functionality, which is called as a abstraction. Example, like a TV remote. Okay, we can just press the power on button, we can press the power off button. Okay, so the TV will be power on, the TV will be power off, but we don't know like after pressing the button how the TV is going to be off or how TV is going to be on. So we just follow the like functionality we are just using, like just pressing the button, and the action is going to be work behind, right? So this is the abstraction. You are hiding the implementation and showing only functionality to the user. That is called as a abstraction. Second feature we have, which is called as a encapsulation. Encapsulation means what? Wrapping all the data into the single unit, which is called as a encapsulation. Also we can say that encapsulation is also used to hide the data. Okay. What is meant by wrapping all the data into the single unit? So we know the capsule. Okay. In a capsule there are small medicines and we just wrap it and just inject into our body. So this is the encapsulation, wrapping all the data into the single unit, that is called as a encapsulation. The another feature, that is a polymorphism. Polymorphism means what? One thing in many form. In simple term, one method we are going to create in many form. So same method with different parameter, same method with same parameter. Those are the types of the polymorphism. We are going to see that part later as well. The next part or the next feature, that is a inheritance. Inheritance means what? Accessing parent class properties to the child class, which is called as a inheritance. Why we have to access the parent class properties to the child class? To achieve the reusability of the code. Okay, so if you declare a one code, that is there is no any necessary to define the code again and again. You can just extend the class and you can access all the properties. That is accessing parent class properties to the child class. And why? To achieve the reusability of the code. So those are the basically features of object oriented programming language. And now also you can see like Java programming language is very much popular. Why it is very much popular? Because it is based on a class and object. It provides the features like those, like encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, security. It is a high level. So those are the all features of the Java and the object oriented programming language. Now let's quickly move to the another part, that is nothing but introduction to the Java. So what is Java and why we have to learn a Java? So Java is a high level, it is a object oriented, is a platform independent programming language developed by the James Gosling at Sun Microsystems in 1995. Okay, we will see word by word. So first, Java is a high level. Why it is a high level? Because the syntax is in English. Okay, developer can easily read, easily understand, easily manipulate. So it is nothing but the high level. Second, this is a object oriented because it has class and object. Everything can be done by the class and object. It provides the features. So it is object oriented. It is a platform independent. What is meant by platform independent? Write once, run anywhere. So this is a platform independent. We will see why Java is called as a platform independent as well. This is a programming language developed by James Gosling at Sun Microsystems in 1995. It was designed with the philosophy of write once, run anywhere, meaning compile the Java code can run on any platform that has a Java virtual machine. This is the basically, and that's how the Java is basically the platform independent programming language. The features are, again the first feature, that is a platform independent, write once, run anywhere. This is a platform independent. Another, that is a multi-threading. Multi-threading means what? Performing multiple tasks simultaneously, which is called as a multi-threading. Okay. Another, this is a high-level programming language, and another part that this is a robot. So those are the basically features of Java. Again, what is the architecture of Java? Okay. Now up to it, what we learn, what is meant by programming language. Programming language has two types: low-level language, high-level language. Later we move with the Java. Java is a high level, Java is a robot, Java is a platform independent programming language which is developed by James Gosling at Sun Microsystems. Okay, so this is the basically introduction part. Now, what is the Java architecture? How the Java program is going to be executed? That part we are going to see. So, simple term, Java architecture has three parts: JDK, JVM and JRE. What is meant by JDK, what is meant by JVM and what is meant by JRE? So simply, Java architecture refers to the structure and the key components involved in developing and running a Java applications. It is built around the three core elements, that is JDK, which it stands for Java Development Kit, JVM, which stands for Java Virtual Machine, and JRE, it stands for Java Runtime Environment. These components work together to support the development, compilation and executions of the program. So simply, JDK provides the tools necessary for writing and compiling the Java code. JVM acts as the engine that runs and compiles the code by converting bytecode to the machine to the specific instructions. And then JRE supplies the libraries and environment needed to run the Java applications. So we will see with example like how the JDK, JVM and JRE is going to be executed. Also we will see the simple architecture. Okay, so let's take an example. This is our outer part, which is nothing but your JDK. JDK, it stands for Java Development Kit. Always remember, when you install the JDK, inside that JRE and JVM will provide. So this is the JDK. Inside the JDK, there is another part which is nothing but your JRE. JRE, it stands for Java Runtime Environment, and inside that we have JVM. JVM, it stands for Java Virtual Machine. So JDK, then JRE and then JVM. This is the architecture. Okay. So JDK is mainly required for the developers. So JDK have all the tools, all the utilities which is required to build applications or which is required for the developer. That's why JDK can be using by the developer. JRE. What does JRE do? So JRE provides all the environment which is required for the JVM. So JVM is a virtual machine. We are not able to see this virtual machine. Then how it is going to be executed? So JRE provide all the environment to the JVM. So because of that, JVM can easily execute the bytecode. So this is the JDK, JRE and JVM. When you install the JDK, then inside that JRE and JVM will be present. JDK required for the developers and JVM which is required for the end user. So I'm just going to write here end user. Okay. So this is a JDK, JVM and JRE. Also we will see like how our code is going to be executed and what is the structure of the execution of the programs. So that part also we are going to see. So let's take an example. Okay, so first the code which is done by the developer, which is known as a source code. Okay, so the code which is developer going to be do, that is called as a source code. Then this source code needs to be converted to the bytecode. So there will be the bytecode. Okay. After the bytecode, there will be output. So there will be the output. So this is the basically like the flow of the execution of program. Source code, then bytecode, and then output. Like how does source code we can understand, like how we can say that the particular code is a source code. So always remember, if your file is saved with .java extension, then that file is known as a source code. Or simple term, you can say the code which is done by the developer, which is known as a source code. Okay. Now, what I just told, that JVM basically used to execute the or display the output. Okay. So JVM not understand the source code. That's why the source code we have to convert to the bytecode. How we can convert the source code to the bytecode? For that, Java provide the compiler. Okay. What does compiler will do? Compiler will simply source code converts to the bytecode. So this is the compiler. So .java file will convert to the .class file. So source code is now converted to the bytecode. Now JVM can easily understand the bytecode and just convert to the machine code and generate the output. So there will be the JVM. Now you can see there is a compiler and there is a JVM. So by the compiler and the JVM, Java is a interpreted programming language. Okay, why it is interpreted? You can write it anywhere, you can run it anywhere. It is a platform independent. Why? Because it has a compiler and it has a JVM as well. So what does compiler will do? Compiler will convert source code to the bytecode, and then JVM converts bytecode to the machine code and the output will be generated. So this is the architecture of the JDK, JVM and JRE. So JDK is basically used by the developers, JRE is basically used for the end user, and JVM provides JVM is basically used to execute the bytecode into the machine code, and JRE provides all the libraries which are required for the JVM. Now up to that we learn about the JDK, JVM and JRE, the architecture. Now we will see a simple example like how the program is going to be work. So first, to execute the program, we are using a Eclipse IDE. Okay, so this is the basically Eclipse IDE, which is the enterprise edition. If you open it, you have to go to the file option, go to the new, and then there is an option for the Java project. Click on that. You can give the project name as you want. So let's take an example. I am giving the project name as an example. Then click on the next button and simply click on the finish button. So this is the basically our project. You can see here, this is the example. You just have to open it. There is a SRC module. What is the SRC module? This is nothing but your source. Inside that SRC, your all packages will be there, and inside the package, your all classes will be there. We will see what is meant by package and what is meant by class. So we will simply right click on the SRC, go to the new and just create a package. What is meant by package and why we are creating an package? Package is nothing but the collection of classes and interface. So I will give an example. Suppose I have 5, 3, 6, like 10 classes. Okay, let's take an example. I have to create a 10 classes. It is not mandatory to create a 10 different projects. So what you can do, you can just go with a package. Package means what? The collection of the classes. You can just give or create multiple classes inside the one package as well. And why we are using only package? So like just take an example. For the one class, I have done the addition and same code I want in my another class. I can just simply import the one package inside the another package. That's why we are using a packages. So you can just remember the simple definition. Package is nothing but the collection of classes and interface. So I'm just going to create this package. You can give the package name as you want. I'm giving com.example as my package name, and then we will just click on the finish button. So this is our package. Inside the package, you have to create the classes. So I'm just going to right click on this package, go to the new, and then there is an option for the class. So we will simply go to the class. Then you have to give the class name. But quickly we will see here, you can see source folder, example/src. src is nothing but your source, and example, this is your project name. com.example, this is a package, and inside that package we are creating a class. So I'm just going to create hello, this is my class name. Always remember in Java, when you are going to create a class, the first character should be in a capital only. So hello.java, this file will create. You can just click on the finish button. Like I just told, hello.java, this is our file. So Package is nothing but the collection of classes. So inside that package there is a class that is the hello. So inside that you have to create a main method. So public static void main. Inside that we are going to use string args, and then we will open the curly brackets, then system.out.println. Now using this system.out.println, I am going to print a message that is welcome. Okay. So this is our first class which is used to display the welcome message. We will simply save this file and then we will click on the run button. Now you can see the welcome message is here. So that's how you can create your classes in a Java. Like I just told that one package can have the multiple classes. So inside this com.example we create a class that is a hello.java, and same like that you can create a multiple classes. Now how our program is executed over here, how the JDK, JVM and JRE works over here. So first we created the file. The file name is hello.java. Okay. So this hello.java, which is nothing but your source code. Okay. So this is our source code which can be done only by the developer. So this is the source code. Then we convert hello.java to hello.class. So this source code now converted to the bytecode. Okay. And then it will generate an output. How it will generate an output? So first source code we converts to the bytecode. And how we converts this source code to the bytecode? For that we have compiler. What does compiler will do here? It will convert the source code to the bytecode. So now here we have a bytecode, and now this bytecode is going to be generate or convert to the machine code, so that we will get the output. And for that we have JVM, which it stands for Java Virtual Machine, and then Java Virtual Machine will convert this code to the output, or you can say into the machine code as well. So this is the architecture. So hello.java, this is the source code which can be done by the JDK. Okay. Then hello.java file will convert to the hello.class file by the compiler. Then it will generate .source code to the .class, like source code to the bytecode, and then JVM will execute this bytecode to the machine code. So that's how your program is going to be execute here. Now let's quickly move to the another part, that is nothing but your keywords. Keywords is also the very important thing when you are creating any classes or any projects into your Java. What is meant by keyword? Keyword is nothing but predefined words, okay, or you can call it as a reserved word as well. Always remember, every keyword will start with a small letters only. I will give an example. So this is our keyword. So keyword, it is a reserved word that has a predefined meaning in a language. These are the words of part of the Java syntax and cannot be used for naming a variable, methods, classes or other identifiers. So keyword, every keyword have its special meaning. So you cannot use keywords as a variable name or as an identifier or as a class name. Okay, so this is the keyword, and you can say this is the list of the keywords. So abstract, then boolean, then default, then int, then double, those all are the keywords. So all the keywords we are going to see later as well. This is known as a keyword. Then another part which we have, that is called as a variable. Variable means what? The variable is used to store the data of any particular temporary. It is also called as a name of memory location, and each variable in Java must be declared with a specific data type, that is called as a variable. Simple term, you can say that variable is nothing but the name of memory location where you can store the value. Example, suppose I want to use 10, 20, 30 like those values. So in code or in any programming language, you cannot store 10, 20, 30 like directly into your program. For that you need a variable. So variable will store this value and you can access those values by the variable. So that is called as a variable. That's why I am saying that variable is nothing but the name of memory location where you can store your values. So one variable can store only one value. Another rule, variable must have to be start with characters only. Third rule, no special symbols will be used. Fourth rule, no digit can be used, and if you want to use the digits, you can use the digits at the end of the variable declaration. There is a syntax. What is a syntax? Data type, then variable name and then value. That is a syntax basically. We will see later how to declare a variable as well. But before that, you can see in a syntax, the syntax is data type and then variable name. What is meant by data type? So data type has two types. The first one, which is known as a primitive, and the second one, which is known as a non-primitive data type. So primitive means what and non-primitive means what? So primitive has a fixed size and non-primitive does not have a fixed size. Like how we can say that primitive has a fixed and non-primitive does not have a fixed value. In Java, data types are categories of data that specify the size and the type of the value that variable can store. Like primitive data type, there are string, int, byte, short, long, float, double, boolean. So those are the basically primitive data types. Those are the most basic data types built into the Java language. They define the type and the size of data that a variable can hold, that is called as a primitive data type. If we talk about the integer, okay, like let's talk about the int. It can store the 4-byte memory space. If we talk about the boolean, it have a 8-byte memory space. So the memory space is fixed. You cannot change it. That's why it is known as a primitive data type. Another part we have which is called as a non-primitive. Non-primitive also you can call it as a user defined because the size is not fixed. Like you can just increase the value and you can just decrease the value. That is called as a non-primitive data types like array, class, list. Those all are the types of the non-primitive data type. Okay. So we are going to see later what is primitive and what is non-primitive with some examples. Okay. Now let's see a quick example up to the keywords and the variables part. So this is the basically class. Okay, let's just create a new class. Right click on the package, go to the new option and go to the class option. I am giving the class name as a first and then just click on the finish button. Okay, then I am using like public, then static, then void, then main and then string args. Okay, and then we will just open the curly brackets here. Like now I want to perform the additions. So simple term, to perform the addition, like 10 plus 20, the value will be 30. To store the 10, we have to declare one variable. To store 20, we have to declare the second variable. And to store the addition, we have to declare the third variable. So simply, three variables are required. One variable can hold only one value. That's why we are going to declare the three variables. So int, because I want a numerical values. So A contains 10, then B contains 20, and then the result also I have to store into the another variable. That's why I'm using the add variable. Now, as I told that one variable can hold only one value. So A contains 10 and B contains 20. So it is not necessary to take input from user. So you can just go with the addition process, add equals to A plus B, and using system.out.println, we are going to print the addition like addition equals to, and then just give the variable name, that is add. Okay, and then again we will save this file and quickly run this file. So you can see the output, I am getting addition equals to 30. Like how this program is going to be executed again. So JDK, JVM and JRA. But now quickly understand what is this public, static, void main, what is the system out println. Let's see with that part also. So simply public is a access specifier. Okay, when you use a public, that class, that method will be accessible to everywhere. Like outside the package also this method or this class will be accessible. That's why we are using a public access specifier. Then class is also known as a keyword. Like previously we told about the keywords. The keyword is nothing but the reserved word. So public, class, those are the keywords. So class keyword is basically used to declare the classes. Then first, this is the class name. You can give any name as your class name. Then curly brackets. Curly brackets is for what? It is for dedicate or like simply you can say, if you want to declare the block of code, you can go with the curly brackets. This is the special symbol. Then again public, it is access specifier again. Static, this is also the keyword. Void, this is the return type because main method does not return any value. So we are using a void as a return type. Then main is the function which is also called as a starting point of the program. Like your program whole execution can be done by this main method. That's why it is very important. Then string args, which is nothing but your command line argument. So this is our main method. Always remember in Java, when you are creating any class or if you want to implement any class, you have to declare this main method inside your main classes. So that's why this is our main class and this is our main method. Now, how you can say that the particular method is a main method, or how you can say like particular class is a main class. So, always remember while creating an classes, if there is a public access specifier with the class, then that class is known as your main class, because subclasses don't have the public access specifier. This is your main class, that's why it contains the public access specifier, and this is the main method. Again, curly brackets, which is for the block of code, and then I have declared the variables like a, b and add. Int is a data type, a is a variable and 10 is our value, b is a variable, 20 is our value, add is our variable. So when I do 10 plus 20, the result will store in this add variable. So you can see a plus b, like 10 plus 20, value is in add, and then system.out.println will display the output. What is system? System is nothing but your class, out which is called as an object, and println which is called as a method. You can use print or println, it's depend upon you. So in Java, if you want to display anything on output screen, like if you just want to display the dot also on output screen, you have to use system.out.println. System is a class, out is an object, and println it is a method. And then my block of code has been done, so I am just going to close this bracket. So this is the basically first or the second program of the Java, like you can just perform the manipulations like that. So this is the basically up to the primitive and non-primitive data type. Now you will say like, ma'am, we can do the addition simply on a calculator, then why we are going with this all the lengthy process? So simply, so now this is the static program, like a equals to 10 and b equals to 20. Now I want the addition for the dynamic values. Dynamic means what? I want to take a input from user, any value which is entered by the user, I want to perform the operations for that value. Like how you can take the input from user? So Java provides a scanner class to take a input from user. So scanner is a class basically. So scanner is a class in Java. It is a part of java.util package, and it is used to read input from various sources. It is most commonly used to read input from the users during the executions of the program, that is called as a scanner class. How you can use a scanner class? So simply, scanner class is basically found in a java.util package. So I just told about the package. Package is nothing but the collection of the classes. So simply there are two types of package, predefined and user defined. Here we declare com.example, which is called as a user defined package, and java.util, which is called as a predefined package. So package have the collection of classes. So same like that, java.util have multiple classes, and from all the list of the classes we found one, that is a scanner class. So simply scanner class is basically used to take a input from user, which is found in a java.util package. How you can use a scanner class? Let's see with some examples. I am going to create a new class here, second, and then we will just create a main method, that is public static void main string args. Then we will open the brackets. Now I have to take an input from user, so I am using x, y and add. Those are the three variables. Now I am not initializing the value to that variables. Why? Because I want to take an input from user. If I initialize the value inside this variable, I am not able to take an input from user in that same variable, because one variable can hold only one value. So because of that, we are just going to declare, we are not going to initialize. Now we have to take an input from user, so we have to declare a scanner class. Scanner sc equals to new scanner, then system.in. So this is the basically scanner class. What is this scanner? This is the class. What is this sc? This is known as an object. What is this new? This is the keyword. Then again scanner. Now this is called as a constructor, and then system.in. Okay. Now you can see I am getting an error. How you can identify that the particular class has an error? There will be the red line. Okay. So this scanner class is found in a util package. So you have to import the scanner class. So you can see import java.util.scanner. That's how you can import. So scanner sc equals to new scanner and then system.in. Now I have to take a input from user. For that, we have to set the instruction. So I am using again system.out.println to set the instruction. Enter x and y value. After reading the instruction, user will enter the value. To take a input, x equals to sc.nextInt, same y equals to sc.nextInt. We taken the input from user, and then add equals to x plus y, we done the addition, and then using system.out.println, we have to print the addition. So addition equals to then plus add. So this is the basically program for the dynamic. Okay. Now what we done here, first we declare the package, that is import java.util.scanner. There are two ways simply. If you want only particular scanner class, you can just use util.scanner, and if you want to access all the classes, you can give the star, that is known as a asterisk sign. So this is for the universal, like you can access all the classes from that particular package. Now I want only scanner class, so I am going with the scanner class only. This is our class. Inside that class there is a main method. Inside that main method we declare the variables. Then we declare the scanner class, like we created the object, because every class can be accessed only by the object. So scanner class also, if you want to access, you need to create an object. So I am creating an SC, this is my object. You can give any name as your object name. Okay. Always remember in Java, like for your left hand side, while creating an object, on your left hand side, that is known as your class. On your right hand side, that is known as your constructor, only while creating an object. And who is responsible for that constructor? The compiler is responsible. Like you can say like, ma'am, there is no any constructor, and how you can call that this scanner is a constructor? Because this is the basically default constructor and compiler is responsible for that. So this scanner is a class, SC is an object, new is a keyword which is used to create a object, scanner which is called as a constructor, and system.in which is used to like read the inputs. Then we have the next function. What does next function will do? It will parse the value to that particular variable. Like you taken the input using a system.in, you read the input. Then that particular input value you need to check, like that particular value is only on an integer or this is for the another data type. Now we want only integer, so we are using next int. It will check that particular value is for the integer only. If the value is only for the integer, the next method will parse the value to that variable. Same like that, we take the input for the two variables like x and y. Then we perform the addition, and then again system.out.println, using that we are displaying the result. So this is the basically scanner class, like that's how you can take an input from user. This is the structure which we previously discussed, that public which is known as a access specifier, static returns without creating an object, void no return value, main special method that is executed the program, and string args which is known as a command line argument. So this is the structure. Now the another part which is called as a operator. Operator is nothing but like you can say which is used to perform the special operations or the specific operations. There are types: arithmetic operator, relational operator, then assignment operator, again logical operator, increment decrement operator. Those are the types of the operator. In this program, we use this plus sign. So this plus sign is nothing but your arithmetic operator. So simply addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, module, those are the arithmetic operator. Comparison, greater than, greater than equals to, less than equals to, not equals to, those are the comparison, or you can say this is the relational operator. Logical, and, or, and, not, those are the logical operator. Increment, decrement, like prefix and suffix, those are the basically two types. Prefix and postfix also you can say it. So those are the operators. Operators are simply used to perform the specific operations. Like here you can see, by this plus I can say that this program is for the addition. If I use the minus sign here and performing the addition, this is not possible. Because of that particular sign, we can say that the program is for the addition or for the subtraction. So that's why operators are used to perform the specific or the special operations. We are going to see all the operator one by one. Now the another part which is called as a control structure. What is meant by control structure? Which is used to maintain the control on your program. Okay, how we can say that control statement or control structure are used to maintain the controls on your program. So control structures in Java are constructs that enable developers to control the flow of executions to your program. There are two main types of control structure, that is a conditional statement and looping statement. These are the two types. We will see with some example what is control and what is the conditional. So I am going to create the another class. The class name is third, and then you can see there is a suggestion also. Then we include the main method. Okay. Now I want to use a conditional statement, which is also known as a decision making statement, which is used to make the decisions according to the conditions. So simply in a conditional statement, there are some type, like first type, which is called as a if statement. If statement execute the block of code only if a specified condition is true. So this is the if statement. Only if your given condition is 100% true, then only you will get the output. If your condition is like, there are some possibility like 99.99%. So this is not possible in if statement. If the condition is only and only true, then only you will get the output. Otherwise your program will directly terminate. This is the if statement. If else, there are two possibilities, like there will be the condition true as well as the false. So there are two possibilities. If the condition is true, then also you will get the output. If the condition is false, then also you will get the output. That is known as a if else statement. Another we have, that is a else if. Else if means what? There will be the multiple condition, there will be the multiple possibility of output. That is called as a else if statement. The another, that is a nested if. Nested if is basically like one if inside the another if. It is also used to test the conditions. That is a nested if statement. And the another and the last one in a conditional statement, which is a switch case. Switch case is also basically used to test the multiple conditions, but switch case will test all the conditions only via cases, like case 1, case 2, case 3, like that. Now we will see simple example using a if else, switch case, all those parts. So now I want to check the given value is positive or not. What I am saying, positive or not. So in that case we need only if statement. So I am using int a as my variable. Here I have to take an input from user, so I am not going to initialize any value here. So again scanner sc equals to new scanner, again system.in. So like that you can take an input. We just have to import the package. So I am importing java.util.scanner. Then we have to take an input. So again for that we have to give the instruction. So system.out.println enter value. After reading the instruction, user will enter the value. Then a equals to sc.nextInt, we take the input. Now the given value I have to check positive or not. I am using if a is greater than 0. This is the basic logic simply, like if any number is greater than 0, the number is positive. If any number is less than 0, the number is negative. I want positive number, so I am giving the condition for the positive only. Now if the condition is 100% true, I want to print that number is positive. So we will give the statement number is positive. Okay, we will simply save this and run this. Now if I run this program, you can see there is an instruction, enter the value. If I enter 34, you can see the number is positive. Again if I run this program and enter 90, like minus 90, and enter, you can see there is no any output, right? Because your program is terminated. Why it is terminated? Because given condition become false. If the condition is false, you will not get any output. So this is a if statement. Syntax is if condition curly brackets open, block of code, and then curly brackets will be closed. So this is a if statement. Now I want the output for negative number also. So we will simply use a else statement. What does else will do? If the condition is true, if block will execute, and if the condition is false, else block will execute. So we will simply use system.out.print here also. The number is negative. Okay. Now here if the number is positive, then again you will get the output, and for the negative numbers you will get the output. So this is a if else statement. So if I enter plus 90, the number is positive. Again I am going to run this, and if I enter minus 90, then also I am getting the output. So this is a if else statement. If the condition is 100% true, your if block will execute. if your condition is 100% false, then your else block will execute. So this is a if else statement. Now again, let's move to the another part that is called as a else if ladder statement. What is else if ladder? Else if ladder is basically used to test the multiple conditions, and there will be multiple possibility of outputs. So let's take an example. I want to take an input from user. If user enters once, I want to print Monday. If user enters 2, I want to print Tuesday, like that. So if A equals to 1. So if user enter once, I want to print Monday. So we will simply give Monday. Again, I have multiple conditions. So we will use else if A equals to 2. So if user enters 2, then we are going to print Tuesday. Okay. Same like that for the Wednesday, for the Thursday, for the Friday. And at the end, you can go with the else and you can print like wrong choice. Else will execute if all your condition become false. We will simply run this. Okay, enter the value. If I enter 1, I am getting Monday. If I enter 2, I am getting Tuesday. If I enter any other value like 89, I am getting wrong choice. So this is a decision making statement. Also it is known as a conditional statement. Same like that, we have a switch case which is also used to test the multiple condition. Another part we have which is called as a loop. Loop means what? So simply loop is used to execute the block of code. Like loop is basically used to execute the continuous block of code. Like I want to print a numbers from 1 to 10. It is not possible like I will declare 10 variables. I will take input for the 10 variables and print the 10 variables. It is not possible. It will just it is just basically used to length your code. Okay. So that's why you can go with a loop. Loop is basically used to execute the continuous block of code. Now I want to print welcome message 10 times. I am going to use integer I and going to initialize the variable with a 1 value because I want from 1 to 10. So we are just going to initialize here. First loop, that is known as a while loop. While loop is basically known as a entry control loop. So if your condition is 100% true, then your block of code will execute. That is called as a while loop. I want this welcome message for 10 times. So I am giving the condition that is I is less than equals to 10. This less than equals to, which is your nothing but comparison operator. So we given the condition and using the system.out.println, I am going to print a welcome message and then we will simply save this file and then click on the run button. Okay. Now if I click on the run button, you can see I am getting an output infinite. Why I am getting the infinite? Because I have not set the increment operator here. Like I equals to 1, the condition is true and I am getting the output. But when the condition will become false, like when you are doing the increment. So that's why we need to do the increment like I plus plus. Now here the increment has been done. Now we will terminate this code and then we will again run this code. Now you can see I am getting welcome message for 10 times. Right? So this is the while loop which is called as a entry control loop. So entry control loop means what? If your condition is 100% true, then only you will get the output. If your condition is 100% false, then you will not get any output. So this is known as a while loop. So simply if I just make the condition wrong, like I is greater than equals to 10. Now the condition is become false and there is no any output. So this is called as a entry control loop. Same like that we have a for loop. And the another loop we have which is called as a do while loop, which is nothing but your exit control. So up to now we learn about the loop statement. So loop is nothing but it is used to execute the continuous block of code. It has two types, entry control loop and exit control loop. Entry control loop means what? Condition will check at the start of the loop, and exit control means condition will check at the end of the loop. Now let's move to the another part that is called as an array. Array means what? So simply array is a collection of similar types of data. What is mean by collection of similar types of data? Simply, I want to display the numbers from 1 to 50. So every number will be for the integers only. Now, I want to display the numbers from 1 to 50 again, but the numbers should be for the double. So every number will be only for the double. So each element, each number will be only for the same data type, that is called as an array. So simply array is a collection of similar types of data. Array has two types. The first type, which is known as a one-dimensional array, and the second type, which is known as a two-dimensional array. Okay, we will see a simple example like how you can declare a one-dimensional array, how you can declare a two-dimensional, and how the executions are going to be done in an array. So in Java, if you want to declare any array, so you just have to create an object. So simply I want a array like collection of data for the integers. So I am using int a, then equals to new, again int, and then inside the square brackets you have to initialize the value. That's how you can declare it. So int, that is a data type. So all the elements, each element will be only for the integers. A is my array name, and then there is an empty square bracket which is just for to initialize the values. New is basically the keywords. So array is an object. That's why we are using a int as a data type here. Sorry, int simply as a data type. And then in a square bracket we are initialize the file 5. So every element, like we are just going to initialize the 5 element, and every element will be only for the integer type. So that's how you can declare your one-dimensional array. And for that I need a variable because I want to go from 1 to 5. So to jump from 1 to 5, we want like increment and decrement. So for the increment I am using the I variable. Now I don't know like what is the value for that 5 elements. So I have to take an input from user. Now I want 5 inputs. So it is not possible to take input 5 times, like declaring code again and again for 5 times. It is not possible. So we will go with the loop. Why? Because loop is used to execute the continuous block of code. So we are going to use a for loop here for I equals to 0. Always remember in array, every element will just initialize with a 0 index. So I equals to 0. I want numbers till 5. So I is less than 5, I plus plus. So this is our for loop. What I am doing here, I equals to 0. The first element will go to the 0th index. Then I is less than 5. The last element will go to the 4th index. Then from 0 to 5, I want to do the increment. So that's why we are using I plus plus. So this is for the increment purpose. Now I want to take a input from user. So again we are going to give the instruction to the user. So using a system.out.println, enter a of 5. So after reading this instruction, user will enter the value. To take an input, we need to declare the scanner class again. So I am just going to declare scanner sc equals to new, and then again scanner, then system.in. That's how you can declare your scanner class. So this simply we have a scanner class, we have a for loop. Now we want input for the 5 variables. So I am going to use a of I equals to sc dot next int. Now look at here carefully. I want input for 5, like 5 elements I want, but I am taking input only by 1. So this is the basically loop, and this is the nothing but your array. So this loop will take the elements. Okay, so loop will execute 5 times. It will take the input for 5 times, and all the input we are storing in this a of I. So that's how you take the input. Now I want to print the output. So same for loop, you can just use repeat, and then I just want to display the output. So to display any content on output screen, what we have, so system.out.println, and then I am going to declare a of I, which holding the 5 elements. We will simply run this file. You can see enter a of 5. So first element, second element, third element, fourth element, and the 5th element. You can see I am getting all the elements. So this is the array. Array means what? It is nothing but the collection of similar types of data. So same like here, we first declare the array, which is the one-dimensional array. Then we declare the scanner class. We want to take an input from user. Then we declare the for loop. For loop is for what? Because we want 5 elements, and it is not possible to declare 5 elements like many times. So it is not possible because array is a collection of similar types of data. All the elements we are storing only using a one variable. So we are using a for, then we are taking the input inside the one variable only, and then using a for loop we are going to print the values. Now how this array is going to be execute, let's see that part also. So let's take an example. Okay, so let's take an example. First we declare an array. What is array? First we declare that is 1, the second element that is 2, the third element that is 3, then the fourth element and then the fifth element. Those are our 5 elements. Okay, so this is the basically index. So the first value is going to be initialized in 0 index, then the 1 index, then 2 index, then 3 index and then 4th index. So this is nothing but your index value. Okay, so this is called as a index, and the values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 which is called as a values. So every time in array, if you declare any value, the first value will go to the 0 index only. So this is the index and these are the values. So this I variable have this 0 index, and this 0 index is storing this 1 value. Same like that, I variable now have 1 index and the 1 index is storing this 2 value. Same like that, I have the 2 index and 2 is storing the third element. So this is the basically execution. So that's why we are using a of I. So it will just consider as a of 0, then a of 1, then a of 2. Same like that, it will store all the elements. Okay, so that's how your basically array is going to be used. So simply array is what? Collection of similar types of data. It has 2 types, 1-dimensional array and 2-dimensional array. Array is nothing but object in Java. That's why we declare the int data type as well as the new keyword. I want the collection for the integers, that's why I declare the int as an data type. Okay, and so this is the basically simple example for declaration of 1-dimensional array. Same like that, we can declare the 2-dimensional also. It will just contains the row as well as the columns. Okay, so this is the array. Now let's move to the another part which is called as a functions, which is also the very important concept in Java. So why the function is very important? Because I want to achieve the reusability of the code. Like I want to execute the same block of code multiple times. How we can do that? So for that, Java provides a function. Function is nothing but the block of code. It has 2 types. The first type which is known as a predefined function, and the second type which is known as a user defined function. So those are the 2 types. You can see here like this system.out.println. This println, it is your function, and this is the predefined function. Again there is a main. Main is also the function, but this is also the predefined function. So this is the predefined functions. Now I want to create a user defined functions. So how you can create a user defined functions, how you can access the user defined functions, all that part we will see. So user defined functions are mainly divided into 4 parts. Which are the 4 parts? The first part which is known as a no argument, no return. So the first part which is nothing but no argument, no return. We are not going to return any value and we are not going to pass any argument, or you can call it as a parameter also. Second part we have, that is a with argument, but there will be no return value. So this is the second type. Third type we have, that is with return, but there will be no argument. And the fourth type we have, that is with argument and with return. So it will pass the parameters as well as it will pass the arguments also. So this is the basically 4 parts of the user defined function. So simply no argument, no return, with argument, no return, with return, no argument, with argument, with return. Those are the 4 types of the functions. We will see with some example how you can declare the user defined functions. So simply for that we require the class and object. So already we have the class. Class is nothing but the collection of the data, collection of methods and variables, which is called as a class. So method we cannot declare inside this main method. Like user defined method we cannot declare directly into the main method. So the user defined method we have to declare into our class. So first we will see no return and no argument. So I am using void get, curly brackets will open, system.out.println, I am going to print an output. Let's take an example, no argument, no return. This is my output. Okay, we will simply save this file, okay, and then we will run this file. So simply save and run. Now you can see I am not getting any output. Why I am not getting an output? I have a method, I have a system.out.println, but still I am not getting any output. Why? Because this method is where inside the class. Class is a collection of variables and methods. So same like that, inside that class we declare the method, but class not have any memory space. If you want to access this method, you need to create an object. So the memory space will allocate and use an access. You can easily access the method which is declared inside the class. So you need to create an object. So the syntax is class name, object name equals to new class name. That's how you can create the objects. So third, this is the class, T, this is the object, new, this is a keyword. Again third, this is the constructor which is the default constructor, and the compiler is responsible as we previously discussed. Now we created the object, the memory space is allocated. Now let's see if we are getting any output or not. You can see again I am not getting any output because inside the class there is a method and you need to call this method and then only you can access the output. So to call we have a dot operator, so T dot. You can see in a suggestion I am getting the get method. We will simply save this and click on the run method. Now you can see I am getting the output, no argument, no return. So this is the first type of method, that is a user defined method which not have any argument, not have even any return value, and just simply we created the object and using a dot operator we are calling this method. What is the syntax for the user defined methods? Return type, function name or the method name, parenthesis brackets, curly brackets open, block of code, curly brackets close. Void is a return type. We are not returning any value, so we are using a void. Get is a method name. You can give any name as a method name. Parenthesis brackets is for the methods. Always remember in a special symbols. If you are using a parenthesis bracket, it will be only for the methods. So if you want to use a methods, compulsory you have to declare the parenthesis brackets. So void get, then parenthesis brackets, curly brackets open, because this is a block of code. System.out.println, we are just going to display some outputs. For this method and for this class, we declare the object and using that object we call the method. So this is the first type of the method. Second type we have, that is a with argument and no return. So again there is no any return value, return type will be void. I am using set as a method name. Want to pass the parameters, so int a, this is my parameter. You can pass number of parameters inside that method. I want only one, so I am using only one. Then again you need to use a system.out.println, like I want to print the square. So let's take an example, system.out.println. First I am going to declare the message, that is with argument no return. Okay, and then which value we pass, so we will print this value also. Value equals to, and then we will print the value. Now let's quickly save this and run this. Okay, save this and run this. You can see again I am getting only one output. Now I have two methods, but still I am getting only one output. Why it is happening? Because again for this method you need to call. When you call, only then you can access the method. So same like that, t.set, we will call this method. You can see in a suggestion I am getting 0, okay, integer a. So you can pass any value. So I am passing this 12. Again if you run this, you can see the two methods executed here. No return, no argument, with argument, no return, and the value for the argument is 12. So what is happening here? T.set, this 12 value will go to this a variable, and then this a variable we are printing using a system.out.println. So this is the second part of the method, that is a no return but with arguments. Then the third part we have, that is a with return but no argument. So with return, for that let's take an example, I want to return the integer number. So I am using a int as a return type. Okay, so let's take an example, I am using a method name as a display. We will see with parameters as well here. I am passing the parameter like let's take an example double, and let's take an example the variable is y. Okay, now simply save this. Now you can see I am getting error here as well. Why I am getting error? Because this display function have the parameter for the double. Double is the data type, but you are returning the value for the integer. It is not possible because double have 8 byte memory space and integer have only 4 byte memory space. So display function should always have to return the double value. So instead of this int, I am going to use a double. So simply we use a double here. Now I want to return this value, so I am using return statement, and what I want to return, the y value, so we will simply use like return y. So we are just going to return this value. Now where this value will go? In a main method. So I am going to use system.out.println and then our object name and dot display method, and we are just going to pass the value that is 4.8. okay. Also I want to display some message, so I am using with argument with return. So I can easily understand like which method of type is this. So we will simply save this and we will simply run this. You can see now all methods are executed here. So those are the methods. Methods means what? It is nothing but the special block, or we can say it is nothing but the block of code which is used to achieve the reusability of the code. It has 3 types, mainly 4 types, like no argument, no return, with argument, no return, with return, no argument, with argument, with return. Like if you want to pass the arguments, the value will go from the main function, like where you call the functions. If you want to return some value, then value will return to your main function or the main method. And if you are not passing any parameter or any arguments or any return value, then it will all points, like all things will be done in a function definitions. So this is the basically functions, or you can call it as a method as well. Okay, so this is the basically methods. Now what I told, that methods are basically used to achieve the reusability of the code. So I can just call the functions many times, like t.get, again t.set. You can call the functions as you want. Okay, we will simply save this, we will simply run this. You can see now I will get output many times. So this is the reusability of the code. You declare code only once, but you can call it many times. So this is the reusability of the code, and this is known as the methods. So simply after the methods, let's move to the another part, that is called as an object oriented programming language. As we previously discussed, that object oriented means what? Everything will be based on a class and object. Class is nothing but the collection of data, and object is nothing but the instance of the class. Give you a simple example. So let's take an example. I have a showroom of cars. I have BMW, I have Mercedes, I have Honda, I have Nano, all the cars I have. Okay. And if someone comes and just asks me for the Nano car, so I will just give the Nano car to him or her. I am not going to assign or give the BMW or the Mercedes, because the user is specifying that he wants a Nano. So I will just assign the Nano to him as well. Okay. So this is the class and object. Class means what? The collection of data, and object means what? Instance of the class. You can see here, inside the class we declare all the data. Like we have a get method, we have a set method, we have a display method. Now object will decide which method he wants. So the object wants the get method, object wants the set method, object wants the display method. So we can just call this. So this is known as a class and object. So for the class and object, we have the another parts, that is a access specifier. So when you are using a class and object, there is a most important part that is known as a access specifier, which is mainly used to set the visibility to the data. Like there are 4 types basically, like private, public, then protected, and then default. Those are the 4 parts. Default is mainly introduced in a Java, which is accessible within a class, like outside the class and within a package only. So this is the basically default. Public, which is accessible everywhere. Private, which is accessible only within a class, and protected will be accessible like for the main class and the subclass. So those are the 4 access specifier we have in a Java, that is the default, then private, then public, and then protected. We are going to see all those access specifiers also. Let's move to the another part, that is called as a constructor. So constructor means what and why we are using a constructor. Constructor is nothing but the special block of code for the class. Why it is called as a special block of code? Like for the block of code we have a methods. Then why we have to learn the constructor as well? Because constructor is a special member. Why it is special? Because class name is must be same as its constructor name. Constructor will automatically execute. there is no need of the dot operator. That's why the constructor is a special member of the class. How you can declare the constructor? So let's take an example. So I'm just going to remove this previous code here. Okay, I'm just going to mention the object only. Okay, so what I told, constructor name must be same as its class name. So our class name is third, the constructor name will be also third, parenthesis brackets because it is a block, that's why we are using a curly brackets also. System.out.println, I am going to print like default constructor. This is my message. Okay, let's take an example. Now you can see here, okay, constructor don't have a return value. Like in previous code we learned, so this is our previous code. Inside the previous code we learned while declaring the methods, we mentions the return type like void, double, those are the return types. But constructor don't have any return type. That's why there is only the class name, that is a third. Then there are the parenthesis brackets. Parenthesis brackets is for what? So this is the basically like we are just going to pass the parameters, like we are just going to do the block of code. That's why we are using a parenthesis brackets as well as the curly brackets. Then using a system.out.println, we are going to print some message. So system.out.println, I am going to display the message that is a default. Then we will simply save this file and run this file. After running, you can see I am getting an output. There is no need of the dot operator. You just created an object. When you create the object, the memory space will allocate to the class, and inside the class we have the constructor. So constructor will call automatically. That's why the dot operator is not needed. We not use a return type. The class name must be same as its constructor name. So this is the basically constructor. This constructor is called as a default constructor. Same like that, we can use a parameterized constructor. So let's take an example, integer a, this is my parameter. And again using a system.out.println, I want to print some message. So system.out.println, I'm going to use parameterized constructor. Okay, and I'm going to like display the value as well, like plus a. Then we will simply save this and run this. Now if I run, you can see I am getting the output for default only. Now I am not getting the output for the parameter. As I previously told, that constructor called automatically. We created the object, but why this constructor is not called? Because these constructor have some parameters, and while creating an object on your right hand side, this constructor does not have any parameter. Because of that, our default constructor is executed and our parameterized constructor has not been executed. So that's why we need to create an object one more time. So this is the object. So instead of t, I am using t1 and just going to pass some values. Now this constructor is for default. Okay, so I am just going to comment out here. So this constructor is for default and this constructor is for parameterized. If we save this and run this, you can see our two block of code, like our two outputs we are getting here for the default constructor as well as for the parameterized constructor. So this is the basically constructor. Just remember the few parts about the constructor. Constructor name must be same as its class name. Constructor does not have any return value. Constructor called automatically, there is no need to call the constructor, and we can do the constructor overloading. You can see this is our first constructor, this is our second constructor inside the one class. This is known as a overloading. This constructor is default and this constructor has some parameters. So this is known as a constructor overloading, this is known as a default constructor, and this is known as a parameterized constructor. So up to now we learn about the constructor. So simply it has three types. So simply default constructor, parameterized constructor, and the another is known as a copy constructor. So after completing this constructor part, let's move to the another part. Okay, so as we discussed previously that OOPS has a 4 features, like Java also has a 4 pillars like abstraction, inheritance, encapsulation and polymorphism. We are going to see those 4 pillars now. So let's start with an first pillar which is called as an encapsulation. So first, what is meant by encapsulation? Why we are using a encapsulation? In simple term, encapsulation is basically used to wrap all the data into the single unit. It is called as a encapsulation. Now the question is that wrapping all the data into the single unit means what? So data is nothing but your variables. So we are going to wrap all the data, like all the variables, into the single unit, that is called as a encapsulation. Why we are using a encapsulation? To hide the data. Now the question is how the encapsulation is going to hide the data. So using a private access specifier, we can hide the data in an encapsulation, and we can provide a public getter and setter methods to access the methods. As we previously discussed about the access specifier, so here we are going to use private and public, those two access specifier. Okay, let's see a simple example what is meant by encapsulation, and also we will see some theory about the encapsulation. So as I just told that encapsulation is wrapping all the data into the single unit, it is called as a encapsulation. So we need to wrap the data into the single unit, and it is used to hide the data. And how we can hide the data? Using a private access specifier. So here I am using a private access specifier. Inside that, let's take an example. I have declared the variable. The variable name is num1. So simply I want to perform the square, and I want to hide the data, like I want to hide the variables and wrap all the data into the single unit. So this variable is now hide, that is a num1. Now the question is that private is basically accessible within a class only. Now I want to access this variable outside the class. How I can access? Because this is a private. Private means it is visible to that particular class only. So if you want to access this variable, you need to provide public getter and setter methods. So how you can provide public getter and setter methods? There are two options. Like you can just type, and Eclipse provide the shortcut also. So we will see those two parts also. So first, private getter and setter method. So simply to set the methods, we are going to use set num1. This is my first method. So set num1 will have the parameter. Let's take an example, num1. This is the parameter. Brackets will be open. Then we are going to use this dot num1 equals to num1. Now what is happening here? Void is a return type, as we learned previously. Set num1, this is a method name. You can give any name as your method name, but I want getter and setter methods in a proper way. So I am using set num1. This is my method. And inside that I am going to pass the parameter because I want value for this num1. Then I am using this keyword. What is this keyword? This is basically used to refer the current value. So the value will come to this num1, and this num1 is going to store this value to this num1 again. So this is the basically this keyword. This keyword is simply used to refer the current value. So now we have a value in a num1 because of this set method, and then I want to access this method. This method is for the integer. Always remember, setter method we have the parameter, and getter method will have the return type. So setter method have parameter num1, and getter method will return that value. So I am using a int. Then I am going to use get num1. This is my method, and then open the brackets and then just return the number. So this is the basically setter method, and this is the basically getter method. So setter method will set the value for that particular variable, and getter method will access the value for that particular variable. Now always remember, your getter and setter method must have to be in public access specifier. So that's why you just have to mention public here, public void get name and public void set name. So that's how you can use it. So simply public access specifier will that do. So private what will do? It will just hide the data, and public we can access the data which is hide using a private access specifier. Now we need to call the methods. So simply t.set num1, I am going to set the value, that is a 12, and same like that t.get num1, and inside that you are just going to display the value. Now again, this get num1 is going to return. You can see here I use the return statement, but here I have not used the system.out.println. So here I have to use system.out.println, and inside that we are going to simply call the method, that is t.getNum1, because this is a object oriented bottom to up approach. So simply when you call this will go to here, then return num1, and then you are just going to print it from here. Then we are just going to run this. You can see I am getting the 12 value. So this is the basically encapsulation. Encapsulation is used to hide the data. Encapsulation is wrapping all the data into the single unit. You need to use a private access specifier with the data, like with the variables, and you have to provide public getter and setter methods to access the value which is in a private access specifier. So this is the first way, like you can type it, and the another way, you just have to go to the source option. There is a generate getter and setter option. Click on that. You want getter and setter for this num1, so select that and click on the generate button. Now you can see your getter and setter methods has been created. You don't need to type the code. So this is the basically source folder. We get this from the source folder. So this is the get and this is the set. So those are the methods. Now same you can just call this. So simply I am going to call, okay, let me just rename this function call get name and set num1. So simply we will copy this get num1 and same like that set num1. Those are the methods. Now we will simply save and run. You can see I am getting again same output. So you can just generate the getter and setter from the source folder, or you can just create the getter and setter method by your own, and this is called as a encapsulation. So what is a encapsulation? Encapsulation in a OOPS is a principle that restricts the direct access to an object data. It protects the internal state of an object and helps to maintain the data integrity and the security. We have a getter and setter methods. Getter method is used to retrieve and setter method is used to set. So this is called as a encapsulation. Encapsulation is simply wrapping all the data into the single unit. Now let's move ahead and go with a new topic, the another pillar which is called as a inheritance. Now this is the very important concept. Inheritance means what? Accessing parent class properties to the child class. It is called as a inheritance. Why to access the parent class properties to the child class? To access the reusability of the code, we are using a inheritance. Inheritance mainly have 5 types, like it has a single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical and hybrid. Those are the 5 types of inheritance. But in Java, we are going to use single, multi-level and hierarchical. The hybrid and the multiple are not supported in a Java directly. Why it is not supported? Because it can cause the ambiguity error. What is meant by ambiguity error? So in Java, you cannot define multiple base classes. That's why the multiple inheritance and the hybrid inheritance are not supported in a Java. So that's why we are going to use single inheritance, multi-level inheritance as well as the hierarchical inheritance. Do you remember what we just discussed? That inheritance is simply used to access the reusability of the code. So just remember that part. So here I need to create the simply single inheritance. So this is our main class. Like if you remember, we previously discussed, like if there is a public access specifier, that class will be considered as a main class. So inheritance, there will be the base class, there will be the subclass. So base class and subclass should have to be different. They should be not related to your main class. So we will just go about the main class. Here you can create your base class and the subclass. So let's take an example. Class base, this is my first class. Inside that you can do all the code. I am going to create a method, that is a void get, brackets will be open. Then system.out.println, I am going to print the message, that is base class code. This is my first message. Okay. Again, this is our base class and this base class has this method. I want this method in my subclass as well. So here I am going to create subclass. So subclass curly brackets open. Here also I want one method. So let's take an example, void set. This is my method. And inside that I am going to print some message, that is subclass is called. This message I want to print here. What is happening? Look at here carefully. First we create the base class. This is our base class which having one method. Then we create the subclass which having the one method. But now I want this base class into this subclass. Why I want? So simply, if you want to access this get, you need to create the object for the base class. If you want to access the set, you need to create the object for the subclass. Now here what is happening? You have to create the multiple objects, which is not technically possible. So what we will do? We will just extend this base class into this subclass. So Java provide the keyword, which is the extends. So this subclass extend this base class. So this get method is accessible inside this subclass also. Now how you can access those two methods? So you can see this class is extend in this subclass. So class, base class, all the properties is now in a subclass. So while after creating the subclass object, you can access the base class properties as well. So we will just simply go here and we want first main methods, that is public static void main string args, brackets will be open, and then we need to create an object for the subclass. So sub, yes, is my object equals to new sub. Now only by using an object of the subclass you can access the properties of the base class as well as the subclass. How you can access? Let's see. Yes dot, what is a method in a base class? The get method. What is a method in a sub? That is a set method. So we will simply call yes dot get. You can see the get method is accessible, and same like that yes dot set. You can see the set method is also accessible. You can simply run this. You can see base class is called and subclass is called. Only by creating one object we are accessing the properties of two classes. So this is a single inheritance. There will be two classes, one base class, one subclass. Base class properties are going to be inherit in a subclass. So this is known as a single inheritance. Same like that, we have the another inheritance, that is nothing but your multi-level inheritance. Multi-level means what? One base class and multiple subclasses. How you can create the multi-level inheritance? So simply let's take an example. This is my base class, right? This is my base class which having the one method. This is my subclass which is also having a one method. Again I am going to create the another class, subclass 2, that is a subclass 2, which is going to be extends our subclass. Now what is happening? What is meant by multi-level inheritance? There will be the one base class and there will be the multiple subclasses. You can see there is a one base class and there is multiple subclasses. That is called as a multi-level inheritance. So simply here also you can create the methods. So let's take an example. I am going to create a void display. Inside that I am going to print a message, that is second subclass called. So this is my message. Now you can see here carefully. This is our base class. This base class is extend in this first subclass and this first subclass is extend in another subclass. So now base class properties into the first subclass and first subclass properties into the another subclass. So we need to create an object for this. So we will just simply create an object for the another subclass and then you just have to call this methods, yes dot display. You can see now this base class is extend into the sub and this sub extend into the subclass 2. So this subclass 2 indirectly have the properties of the base class as well as the subclass. So that's why we create the object of this class and we are calling the methods, right? Now we will simply save this and we will simply run this. You can see all methods are executed here. So this is called as a multi-level inheritance. There will be the one base class and there will be the multiple subclasses. That is called as a multi-level inheritance. Now same like that we have the another inheritance, that is called as a hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance means what? One base class is going to be extend into the multiple subclasses. That is called as a hierarchical inheritance. Means what? This base class is going to be extend in a multiple subclasses. So how you can do? So up to this it will be same. Like, so this base class is extend into the subclass. This part will be same. Now we need to add a hierarchical inheritance. So first I am going to create the class, that is sub2, which is going to be extends our base class. So the base class one base class is going to be extend into the multiple subclasses. So in this sub also base class is extend, and in this sub 2 also the base class is extend. So this is the hierarchical inheritance. So here also I want this method. So let's take an example. Instead of the set, I am going to use the display method. Okay, and then sub 2 is called. So this is the hierarchical inheritance. Now you can see here. Okay, you can see here what is happening. This base class extend into the subclass. Again this base class extend into the sub 2 class. This subclass is not extended to the sub 2 class. That's why to access the set method and to access the display method, we need to create two objects. Why two objects? Because this subclass is not extend anywhere. If you want this, you can create an object. So that's why we are going to create an object here. So simply first we will create an object for the sub. Okay, first we will create the object for sub. And same like that we will create an object for sub 2. S1 equals to new sub 2. So those are the two objects. Now you can simply call the methods. How you can call the methods? S dot get, S dot set, correct? So this subclass have the get method and it can access the base class methods. Again for the S1 dot, what is a method? That is a get, and again S1 dot display. So those are the methods. You can just simply call and you can just simply run this. You can see base class method is called, subclass method is called, again the base class method is closed and sub 2 method is called. So this is known as a hierarchical inheritance. For the hierarchical inheritance, you need to create an object for two classes, and for the multi-level inheritance, you can create an object for only one class, and for the single inheritance, you can create an object for only one class. Single inheritance can be used in a multi-level also and can be used in a hierarchical inheritance also. So this is called as inheritance. Inheritance use the extends keyword, right? Inheritance is basically used to achieve the reusability of the code. That is called as an inheritance. It has 5 types: single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical and hybrid. And we learned 3 inheritance, that is a single, multi-level and hierarchical inheritance, because multiple and hybrid are not supported in a Java due to the ambiguity error. After completing the second pillar, that is a inheritance, after that let's move to the third pillar of Java, which is called as a polymorphism. Now, what does mean by polymorphism and how does polymorphism exactly works? So, simple term, polymorphism is mainly used to create one thing in many form. What is meant by one thing in many form? Just take an example. So, this is my get method, right? This is my first form. I can just recreate this first form in multiple ways. That is called as a polymorphism. One thing in many form, okay? How you can use a one thing in many form? So polymorphism mainly have 2 types. The first type, which is called as the overloading, and the second type, which is called as a overriding. So those 2 types we have in a polymorphism. The first type, that is a overloading, and the second type, that is a overriding. Those are the 2 types. What is meant by overloading and what is meant by overriding, and how does internally works? Overloading, simply there are some rules. Overloading polymorphism, it is also known as a compile time polymorphism, okay? And same like that, it can also called as a early binding. So those are the different names for the overloading. So overloading is also known as a compile time polymorphism, and also it is known as a early binding. And overriding, it is known as a runtime polymorphism. So it is known as a runtime polymorphism, and also it is called as a late binding. So don't be confused if someone asks you about what is early binding and what is late binding. It is same, it is nothing. Like it is same as overloading and overriding. It is also called as a compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. But what is the difference between both of them? Like what is meant by overloading and what is meant by overriding? Overloading is nothing but same method name with different parameter, which is called as a overloading. So overloading and overriding. Now we will see a simple example like how you can perform the overloading, and later we will see how you can perform the overriding. So to perform the overloading, as we discussed, that same method name with different parameter, that is called as a overloading. So in this class, like third is our class, here I am going to add a method, that is a void gate, and then brackets will be open. This is our first method, like, so this method don't have any parameter. And what is meant by overloading? Same method with different parameter. So this same method, if I repeat again, then it will cause an error. Why it is causing an error? Because same class cannot have the same method with same parameter. That is why we are using a overloading, because overloading, what just saying, that same method with different parameter. So here there is no any parameter and we need to pass the parameter. So that's why for this get method I am going to pass the parameter, that is integer a. Now you can see here is no any parameter and here is one parameter. That's why there is no any error, that is called as a overloading. Same method name with different parameter. Here is 0 parameter and here is 1 parameter. You can just repeat the method as you want. So let's take an example. I repeat the method again. Here 0 parameter, here 1 parameter, and here I am going to pass 2 parameter like integer a and integer b. So the method name is same, here also get, and here also get. But here for the first time there is no any parameter, the second time it contains the 1 parameter, and for the third time it contains the 2 parameter. So this is the basically overloading. What you can do changes. First, you can change the number of parameter. Second, you can change the sequence of parameter. Third, you can change the data types of parameter. If you follow those 3 rules, you can easily access or you can easily achieve the method overloading. First rule we access here or we achieved here, that is change in a number of parameters. So here 1 parameter and here 2 parameter. What is the second rule? You can just change the sequence of parameter and you can change the data types also. So here also I am going to repeat this same method, but for now here I am going to use integer x and let's take an example double y. Those are the 2 parameters. You can see here. So simply here is also the 2 parameters and here are also the 2 parameters, right? So let me just do it to the double. So simply here is also the 2 parameter and here are also the 2 parameter. But what is happening here? This method requires a body instead of the semicolon. We are getting this error. So we will simply solve this error. Now you can see here is 1 parameter for the integer. Here are 2 parameters for the integer. Here is also the 2 parameters, but the change is what? In a data type. It contains the integer and the another method contains the data type. So you can change the data type also. And again you can change the sequence of the data types, like in this get method again I want 2 parameters, but 1 parameter is for integer and the another parameter is for double. Here also 2 parameter, here also 2 parameter and here also 2 parameter, but there are changes. What are the changes? For first time there are 2 types but for the integer. Second time there are again 2 arguments but for the double, and for the third time it has the 2 parameters but one is for integer and one is for double. So that is called as a method overloading. Same class cannot contains the same method with same parameter. That's why we are using a overloading, and that's why we are changing the parameter, we are changing the data type, we are changing the sequence of the parameter. That is called as a overloading. Now same like that, another part we have which is called as a overriding. Overriding means what? You can see same method with same parameter. But now here if you can see, let me just remove these methods. Here if you can see, if I just mention void gate and again if I mention the same method, like, so let's take an example. Again I am using void gate and the brackets are open. Now you can see I am getting the error. Then how we can say that I want to use a overriding but with same method name and same parameter? How you can access? So for that we have a inheritance. So to access the overriding, compulsory we have to go with the inheritance. So that's why we will just remove these methods from here. We will create a base class. So let's take an example base class which contains the method. The method name is void get and the brackets are open, right? And the same method I want in another class which is the subclass which extends our base class, right? And this base class method you can just simply override here as well. You can simply override. Now there is no any error. So here also no any parameter, like so here also no any parameter, and for the subclass also we are not passing any parameter. So if you want to access the overriding, you have to use a inheritance. So I will give an example. Here I am going to use system.out.println. We are going to print the output that base class method, this is my output, and same like that I want to print output for the subclass. So let me just add it here, and subclass, this is my output, right? Now we need to call. Now the base class properties is where? Inside the subclass. So for what we need to create an object? Yes, for the subclass. So we will simply create the object for the subclass. Let's go here, let's create the object for the sub, right? And then you can just call yes dot, what is the method? Get. We will simply save this and we will simply run this. What is happening? We are getting the output for the subclass. We are not getting the output for the base class. Why we are not getting output for the base class? Because this is a method overriding. Method overriding means what? This method is going to be override into your subclass method. So that's why you can give same method name with same parameter for the method overriding. So this is the third pillar of the Java. And now the fourth and the last pillar of Java, which is called as a abstraction. Abstraction means what? As we previously discussed, that abstraction is nothing but hiding the implementation and showing only functionality to the user, which is called as a abstraction. I given the examples also, like the TV remote. See, so simply the abstraction, it is divided into two parts. The first part which is called as a abstract class, and the second part which is called as a interface. Those are the two parts. So simply let's see what is meant by the abstraction, like how the abstraction is going to be done. So it has a two types. First type which is called as a abstract class, and the second type which is called as a interface. But what is the difference between both of them? Remember, abstract class have a two types of method, which are the first one which can be the fully abstract method, and the second one which is not the fully abstract method, that is your abstract class. First we will see that part only. Okay. So here let's remove this one. Okay. And we will remove this one also. Okay. So first part, if you want to create an abstract class, you have to use a abstract keyword. So here we are going to use abstract keyword, abstract class, and the class name is demo, and then we will open the curly brackets. Now this class is our abstract class. Now what I told, that abstract class can have two types of method, which are the first method can be the fully abstract, and the second method which cannot be the fully abstract. So in Java, in abstract class, if you want to create a fully abstract method, then you have to use a abstract keyword like abstract void get, and then there will be the semicolon. Now why I am giving the semicolon? So when you are creating an fully abstract method, then there will be the only method declaration. There will be no method definition. That is called as a abstract, fully abstract method. So how you can say the method is declared and how you can say the method is defined? If there is a semicolon, then that method is a fully abstract method, like the method is of only declaration. And if there are the curly brackets, okay, if there are the curly brackets with a method inside the abstract class, then that method will not consider as a fully abstract method. I will give an example. Suppose if I forget to give the semicolon here, and if I add the curly brackets, you can see I am getting the error. Let's see what is the error. abstract methods do not specify a body. So simply if you are declaring a fully abstract method, then it should not contain the body because you are hiding the implementation. If you pass the curly brackets, then there will be the implementation, but you want to hide, so that's why you just have to give the semicolon. If you give the semicolon, that means that this is a fully abstract method and the implementation is going to be hide. And if you don't want the fully abstract method, then just skip the abstract keyword. You can see I just skip the abstract keyword and give the curly brackets. There is no any error, there is no any warning. So the abstract class can have a two types of method. The first one which is a fully abstract and the second one which is not a fully abstract. So let's take an example. Here I am going to print some message. So system.out.println not fully abstract. This is my message, not fully abstract. Okay, so this is the message. See, and now your question will be, ma'am, how we can access this fully abstract? Like there is no any code. How you can access? So for that we need to create a subclass. So the class is result, which is going to be extends your abstract class. So now here also you can see I am getting an error. So class result, the class result is extending what? Our demo class. Demo class is what? This is the abstract class, and this abstract class have a fully abstract method, right? So abstraction is nothing but your contract. What is the contract? Why I am saying it is a contract? Because if your abstract class or if your abstraction have the fully abstract method, then that method should have to be override into your subclass. This is the rule. Okay, that's why this is the contract. So this get method should always have to use in this result class. You can see the warning also. The type result must implement the inherited abstract method, that is a get. So this result method should always have to use the fully abstract method. So we will use like unimplemented method. So you can see this run method is now inside the subclass. Now you can give any message from here. So here I am giving the fully abstract method as a message. Okay. So now again one part. For the abstract class we cannot create an object. I will show you why we cannot create an object. So this demo class have a two types of method. One is a fully abstract, one is a not fully abstract. Then we create a result class which is extending the fully abstract method. Now we will try to create an object for the abstract class. So demo is my abstract class, demo d equals to new demo. And if we just create the object, you can see I am getting error. What is the error? You can see cannot initialize the type demo. That's why for the abstract class we cannot create an object, and because of that the abstract class we are extending into the subclass. So for this result you can create an object. So instead of this demo I am going to create an object for the result. And in using this result you can access the fully abstract method also and not fully abstract method also. So d.set and d.get, you can access those two methods. If you run this, you can see your fully abstract method is also called and your not fully abstract method is also called. So this is known as the abstract class. Abstraction means what? Hiding the implementation and showing only the functionality. It has two types. The first part we learn here, that is the abstract class. Abstract class has two types of method. One is a fully abstract and another one which is not a fully abstract. If you want to create a method fully abstract, then you need to use a abstract keyword with your methods. Okay? And for the abstract class we cannot create any object. That's why we are extending the abstract class into the subclass. Okay? So same like that, abstraction can be done by the interface also. So why we are using a interface and what is meant by interface? Interface is also same as a class. Okay, same as a class. Interface can also contain the methods. But what is the difference between interface and abstract class? Abstract class, as we discussed, it has two types of method, fully abstract and not fully abstract. But interface can contains only fully abstract. Like interface does not contains the not fully abstract method. We will see how. To create an interface, we need to use a interface keyword. So interface keyword. Let's take an example. My interface name is again demo. We will open the brackets. Okay. and then you can just create a method like void get, and this method is now the fully abstract method. You can see there is no need to create an abstract keyword here, right? You can just create a method simply, and that method will be your fully abstract method. How you can check? If you just remove the semicolon and give the curly brackets, you can see you are getting an error. What is the error you are getting? Abstract method do not specify the body. So by default, if you are using an interface and just declaring a method, that method simply will be the fully abstract method. You can define multiple methods as a fully abstract. Again, for the interface, we cannot create an object. So we are going to create a class. The class name is result, and this class is going to be extend your interface. But for now, for the class we use a extends keyword, and for the interface we have to use implements keyword. This is also the important part you have to remember. So here I am using a implements keyword. Okay, so this class result implements the demo interface. Now again, this is the contract as I just told. So this result class must have to implement the get method. So here you can print the output as you want. So I am using system.out.println and just going to print fully abstract. Okay, so this message we are going to print. Now this demo class demo interface extend into this result. So we will create an object for the result r equals to new result, and then we will simply call the method like r.get, and then we will simply run this. You can see fully abstract method is called. So this is the basically abstraction. Abstraction can be done by two ways: abstract class and interface. Interface also not create any object. Interface by default have only fully abstract method. Okay, so up to now we learn about the basic concepts like what is Java, what is meant by programming language, how does programming language develop, the basic parts we covered like loop, like array, like decision making statement. Also we covered the object oriented programming language. There are 4 pillars of Java like encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction, inheritance. Also why Java is important, what are the features of Java, what is the Java architecture, all these parts we have covered, and later we will see the another parts of Java. So up to now we covered the basic concepts, like first we learn about the programming language, how the programming language develop. Then we learn about the Java, like what are the features of Java, why we have to use a Java, why Java is mainly used for the backends, what is meant by procedure oriented, what is meant by object oriented. Then we start the basic concepts of Java like keywords, variables. Also we learn about the control flow statement, inside that conditional and looping statement. Again we learn about the methods in Java. Again we start the object oriented features of Java, like what is meant by class, what is meant by object. Also we learn the 4 pillars of Java, that is encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction and inheritance. And then after that we are going to start the another parts of the Java. Thank you.